Welcome to another episode of the Preparing for Pregnancy After Loss podcast. This is your host, Natalie Facey. I am an angel mom, a coach, and the founder of Coaching for Birth Warriors, which is a platform that supports women and birthing people in their life and pregnancy after loss or infertility. This podcast is where I share tools that will help you on your healing journey and whenever the timing is right for you to prepare for your next pregnancy. Today's episode is a live recording during one of our Birth Warrior Wednesday sessions. These sessions take place every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time inside the private Facebook community. One thing I wanted to give you the heads up of is that there is usually a back and forth exchange between me and members of the community. I often use their names as we're engaging with each other, but to respect their privacy, I remove their names in the recording. So you might hear some gaps here and there, and that just means that I called someone's name, but we removed it from the final edit. So without further ado, here is this week's episode. Today, what we're going to be talking about is the importance of honoring your baby, honoring your angel baby. The reason why this topic is top of mind for me is because this past Sunday was actually the 3rd year anniversary of my baby's passing. And it sounds so weird to say that it's been 3 years. Like it sounds wild. I remember the year after his passing, that felt like I don't know what happened in that year. Like I couldn't remember what happened in that year. And I think the next year was 2020, which we all know that, who knows what happened in 2020. And so this year, 2021, I decided that I was going to do something because the year prior when I didn't do anything, it felt not so good. It felt like there was a gap. The very first year after his passing, I remember that I wanted to do something. So I bought candles. Yes, either 1 or 2 candles and a plant, an orchid, and some cards. Right now I'm trying to think of what I was planning to do with all of those things. But I just wanted something that felt beautiful to honor him in that way. And I think I just was unsure about what to do because having Mateo in my life has been so big. It's hard to decide what the thing is to honor him. It's almost like nothing feels like it would be big enough for how big he has felt in my life. And I would also say that I was afraid of what emotions would come up for me. So even though I wanted to do something and set the intention to do something, I know why the execution wasn't done because it felt like it would have been a challenge. And so after not doing anything to honor my baby that first year after his passing, even months later, it felt as though there was some unfinished business. It felt as though there is something that I should have done but didn't do. And so there was always this sort of like nagging feeling like, oh, you still didn't do that. You still didn't do that. Like months after. Just like there was unfinished business, like there was this like gaping hole that I needed to fill and hadn't filled because the time had passed. And I just didn't want to have that experience this year. So this year I set the intention to do something. There were different ideas that came to mind. Ideas in terms of incorporating or involving, I should say, other family members. And somehow I wasn't sure about doing that either. And then it was Friday and then it was Saturday and then I was like, it's too late. But I knew that within myself and between me and my partner, I wanted us to do something to honor him. So I'll share later on what we eventually did. But I have to say that after having done that, there is just this sense of peace that I have. And even the sense of joyfulness because we did something to honor him, we did something to celebrate him, and yeah, honor his journey and essentially make him a part of our day to day, make him a part of our experience in this life, even though he's in the spirit world or in another plane or in another experience now. So, again, I'll share a bit later what we eventually did and some ideas around things that you can do. But the first thing, well, not the first thing, because we've already started. Before I get into the importance of honoring your baby, what I will have to share first is what happens in our system, what happens in our body when we go through really difficult and challenging experiences, right? So essentially, there is an imprint that's left in our bodies when we go through something, actually, any experience, whether the experience is a positive or a negative one, but especially if it was a memorable and significant one, there's an imprint that's left in your body. Okay. So usually the imprint is, you can think of it as this memory that stays with you or the emotions that stay with you. And these live in your body. They become a part of your body. They're held in your body. And the reason why experiences are held in your body is your body wants to remember that that is what happened to you so that in the future you have wherewithal to work through them. You have the ability to foresee that they might be coming your way and you're able to navigate them as they're coming your way. What happens when we go through something difficult and that imprint is left in the body and there's nothing that's done to address or heal or work through it, is that those memories, those emotions just stay with you and then they seep into other areas of your life. They begin affecting other areas of your life, right? So I'm going to pause on the example of the imprint for now, and I promise I will come back to that. I want to take you through something that feels a little bit more practical, something that you might have experienced. All right, so the example that I thought of is if you have ever had anyone who was semi-important in your life, like not as important as your baby, but they were important in your life. So it could be a favorite teacher, it could be, like a high school best friend or a college best friend, just someone who was somewhat significant in your life. It could be a coworker, and this person happened to be leaving to go somewhere else, right? So if we think of the example of your teacher, it could be that your teacher was retiring or that you actually graduated from their class and you needed to go to another class. For a friend, it could be that they moved to another city or they moved away to go to another college. So any of those experiences where you are where you are and it's the other person that's leaving. It's the other person that is no longer going to be in your life and in your day-to-day experience, right? So if you've had any of those experiences with people, then you know the sense of sadness that you feel. You know that there is a part of you that is grieving. You know that there is a part of you that feels as though your life is going to be very different. And it might even be scary without this person in your life, right? Usually, when someone is leaving, there is some celebration, there is some experience to honor that passage, right? There's some ritual around the fact that something is changing, like something is being changed from one state to the other. So, we throw goodbye parties for people who are leaving like your office, or if it's a teacher that's retiring, there's a retirement party. If it's a friend that's leaving to move to another city, there are these celebrations that we have, which are really ways to honor the fact that something is changing in your relationship with that person. When we have these parties, which really are rituals, then you have the opportunity to share your voice. You have the opportunity to share what it is that this person meant to you, right? You have the opportunity to really express the emotions that you're feeling, what you're holding. You have the opportunity to give language to the imprint that's there, to give language to all the emotions that you're holding. No, the fact that there is a positive celebration, so there might be drinks and food and music, and you get to hug the person and say your goodbyes and reminisce on all the good times and decide that you're going to visit and you're going to keep in touch. The fact that you get to do that, you have the ability to influence that imprint. So remember earlier we talked about the imprint being what is left in your body. So either the memory or the emotion that's registered in your body, right? So when you have the ability to impact that imprint in a positive way, each time you go back to the memory of your teacher retiring, of your friend moving away, you also have almost married to it or paired with it, this positive experience. Each time you go back to that memory that was sad or difficult, of losing someone that you cared about, of losing someone that was meaningful to you, you have this positive imprint with it as well. And so that experience becomes easier for you to remember, becomes easier for you to go back to. And what's held in your body, overall, it could be a positive experience. It could be that, oh, I know that my teacher isn't with us anymore, meaning she retired, or I know that I'm not in that class anymore, that grade anymore, but wasn't that celebration such a fabulous one? Like, didn't we have such an incredible time, putting the cards together and, picking out the music and letting this person know how much we felt about them, right? So overall, the imprint might be a positive one. And so that gives you really the resilience and the ability to work through that difficult thing because it was enveloped by something that was so positive, right? So all that entire example was with people who they didn't die and they were not your children, right? You weren't holding them in your body and they didn't die. This was an experience where they're no longer in the relationship that they had with you initially, right? So they might be in a different city, no longer in that role that they had before. And of course, there is sadness there. Of course, there is grieving there. Now, imagine the depth of sadness and the depth of grief that's there when it is your child who has passed away, when it is a child that you held in your body that's no longer here. It means that the level of care and the rituals around that and the level of honoring around that experience, it needs to be just so much higher because of how grave and how deep that loss is, right? Now, the reason why we often don't have as much honoring of that kind of experience is because we might worry that the emotions are so deep that we might just fall into some deep, dark place and never come out of it. Or we might worry that we're going to make someone else sad. Or we might not have the support around us to affirm the fact that it's okay to honor your baby, it's okay to do that. But I loved putting those examples side by side because just having someone who you care about no longer be in your life, like that alone is difficult. So imagine your baby. That's so much more difficult, right? So it means that we're left with an imprint of pain and really deep sorrow that isn't dealt with. And of course, for some pregnancies, or if the baby was born and eventually passed away, for some of our babies, depending on the stage or depending on the level of support that you have around you, there is a ceremony that happens, right? So there might be a funeral, there might be a gathering of family and friends. There is something that happens to honor the baby and honor that experience, right? And it usually happens a few weeks after the loss, right? However, when year one comes around and year two and year three, you continue to be visited by grief. You continue to have more memories that come up that you still need to work through. And so the importance of having these opportunities to honor your baby over and over again is, as you are met with grief, as you are met with sadness, you are also pairing that with something that feels joyful. You're also pairing that with something that gives you peace. You're also pairing that with, it could be laughter, right? You can have a fun celebration around honoring your baby. And what I would say about healing is that it's an ongoing process. Like, healing happens moment after moment after moment. Like, healing can happen in the shower singing a song. That's often the first example that comes to mind because I sing lots of songs in the shower and they're quite healing, right? Healing can happen in a support group. It can happen as you're sitting down and painting. It can happen as you are going for a walk in the park and observing nature. It doesn't just like happen all at once, right? And so as each of the memories come back to you, as each of the triggers come back to you, as your body is showing you more and more of the imprint that it's holding, more and more of the memory that it's holding, you get to heal that small thing that showed up, right? Whatever comes to your door, you get to take it one step at a time and heal that little bit of it. And then the next year, when it's the next anniversary of your baby's passing, or when it's the next anniversary of your baby's due date, more things might come up and you get to heal that. So as more and more of the imprint, which is often painful, shows up, you get to incorporate something that envelopes that grief, that envelopes that sadness with some love, with some joy, with some peace. I want to share what happens when we don't do anything. So I mentioned before that the first year after my baby's passing, I bought a candle or candles. I was just like in a store, oh, this looks nice, this looks nice, this looks sweet. Really confused about what to do, but just knowing that I want to find some way to honor my baby. So I bought cards that my husband and I could just sit and write notes in to the baby. I bought candles. I bought an orchid, a beautiful orchid. But we didn't end up doing anything because, again, I wasn't sure what to do. Like, nothing felt as though it would have been enough for my baby, basically. And so we just did nothing. And for the months to come, there was this like gaping hole. There was this like gap, this void, like, oh, like something's missing. There's some unfinished business, something that we should have done that we didn't do. And I held on to that discomfort for months. And so this year I was like, we're doing something. I don't know what, but something has to happen. So that was my experience when I did nothing. However, there are other ways that not doing anything seeps into other areas of your life. And I wouldn't say that it's in the not doing anything, it's in the imprint that's left. It's the imprint that is left unchanged and unhealed. The imprint that isn't enveloped by a positive experience that's left. And so, having gone through a loss, the imprint that that loss might have created could be a number of things. So it could be that you failed at something that you should not have failed at, right? None of these statements are going to be true. I'm saying things that I know that I have experienced, like thoughts that have come to my mind and from working with clients, things that they have shared with me, right? So as I say these, do not accept them as an affirmation of anything. I'm just stating what I know that sometimes comes to mind, right? So the imprint could be that your body failed at something that it should have been able to do, right? The imprint could just be that you failed. The imprint could be that your body isn't good enough or strong enough. It could be that things don't work out in your life. It could be that you have bad luck, like all of these things. And like as I'm saying them, it's almost like the words don't want to come out of my mouth because I don't want anyone to take them and believe that any of these things are true. But there's so much power in just naming the things that are under the surface, like in the background affecting us, the things that are in the shadows, because then we can deal with them, right? So all of those negative things could be what make up the imprint. So these things essentially, if you believe them, then you take them into your energy. You take them as a part of who you are. So imagine going into work, so your office, let's say that you have time off and you're back, you're still feeling wounded, you're still feeling hurt, but you know that you have to go in and make that money, right? So you go into work and the imprint that's held in your body is that you have failed at something that that is inherently a part of what you should do, you should be able to do. And so the imprint is that you're a failure. You go into work thinking you're a failure. Imagine how that affects your ability to function. Imagine how that affects your confidence. Imagine how that affects your belief in yourself when there are new opportunities that come your way, right? So if you have this idea that you're a failure, and if you accept that, then it means that every new thing that comes your way, you are going to convince yourself that you don't actually have the ability to pursue them and successfully execute on them, right? So that is one scenario. Another scenario is that you might actually receive that message, like you're a failure, you failed at that thing. But there is like a spirit of fighting that rises up inside of you. Like, I'm not a failure. I'm going to show you and everyone that I can slay at something, that I can overcome something, that I can win at something. And so you might start a new project. You might take on a new job. You might pursue higher education. You might do something that brings you to the next level in your life because it's important for you to prove to yourself and the voice inside of you that you're not a failure, right? So that is a way to respond to the imprint. But if it's still in the back of your mind that that's who you are, it means that there's more healing that needs to be done there, right? So I'm saying all of that to say that, you know, what's left in our body that isn't healed, it affects us in different ways. So one other example could be your relationship. Like if you feel as though your body is flawed, if you feel as though your body isn't good enough, then it affects how you perceive yourself in your relationship with your partner. It affects how sexy you feel and how beautiful you feel and how capable you feel in your relationship with your partner. So these experiences, let me say that they're normal. After going through something that deeply harms you to your core, it is normal for those thoughts to come to mind, right? And it just means that in the process of healing, you get to be even stronger. Because in order to heal, you have to overcome that thing, right? So after you heal, you're actually stronger than the person that you were before. When you go through an experience that feels as though it has shattered you, that feels as though it has broken you, in order for you to overcome that experience, it means that you have to become a stronger person, right? So, whatever it is that you're currently struggling with, know that healing is possible. Know that healing isn't a one time event. And know that there are these micro experiences, these micro moments that add more and more to your healing, right? One example, if someone says, "Oh, don't you have any children yet?" Like, obviously, you should have children, right? People. Anywho, so if someone says, "Oh, don't you have any children yet?" Uh, as you think about how to respond, you might think, okay, the easy answer is just to say no and get this woman out of my face. And then there might be a part of you that wants to say, no, like I actually want to acknowledge my baby, right? Like I actually don't feel like I want to keep this a secret anymore. And so your response instead is, yeah, I have an angel baby. And the person's response might be surprise or embarrassment or discomfort, but you get to talk about your baby in a way that for you is totally comfortable. You get to honor your baby and acknowledge that your baby was a part of your experience, and your baby isn't here in the form that it was here before, but your baby is real, right? And deserves to be acknowledged. So if that is the desire or the inspiration that rises up inside of you, then the fact that you expressed the thing that came up outside of you, that builds your strength, that builds your confidence, and that alone was healing. Like that exchange alone, when you're like, yeah, I have a baby. Baby's not here right now, but baby existed. That alone is a healing experience, right? The first time you share your story on Instagram, even if you're sharing your story in a private account, the fact that you're able to own your story and create a space for yourself where you feel safe to do that, that can be a healing experience, right? And so even the rituals and the experiences that we have to, or the practices I should say, that we have to honor our babies, those are healing experiences. So if I go back to the year after Mateo's passing, when I was like, I don't know what to do, like nothing feels like it's going to be enough for him, it's that I was looking for the perfect thing. It's that I was trying to choose, like, what's the one thing that's going to honor him in like this final way, as if this process is ever final, because it isn't, right? It is never final. A mentor that I have, she talks about healing being a process that spirals deeper and deeper, right? And so you've gotten to a level of healing where you're comfortable talking about your experience. You've gotten to a level where, you know, you might not become as emotional. You know, there might be less sadness as you think about your baby. So there are these different markers that you can use to say, okay, I'm healing, I'm healing, I'm healing. There's more that's happening. But the work continues, right? It continues, it always continues, so that whatever level of healing that you've gone through, then you get to go deeper and deeper and deeper. So it means that in any way that you honor your baby, it's okay. It is just the act of acknowledging your baby, and it's the act of really enveloping what could be a painful memory with something beautiful. So I'm going to just name that in the weeks leading up to Mateo's angelversary, so the day that he made his transition, like that, it was very difficult for me. And it's almost as though my body could remember when I was in the hospital, because so he was born on February 14th, but I remember like in early February, my body was starting to go into this process of grieving again. And I was like, what the hell is happening right now? What is happening? It's like it was just coming over me. And when I looked at the date, I thought, oh, This must have been when I was in the hospital, when I was on bed rest, and when I was scared, when I was being told that I could potentially give birth to this baby and he would be severely premature. That must have been that time. So my body could remember the fear that I was holding, right? So in those moments, as more and more memories were coming up, I didn't actually do anything. I think I was starting to journal, like, I'm thinking of you. This is the memory that came up today. Show me a sign so that I know that you're still around. So I was starting to just like note things here and there so that there was the ability for me to release what was coming up. But closer to the date that he was actually born, I was like on the floor bawling. And that's when I was like, what the hell is happening here? Because I was revisited by grief. And this time it took me deep, like really deep, so that I was like not functioning. I had to just go to sleep. And that was healing. So, in the midst of me, like, holding myself in the fetal position, as all of this grief came back to me, I was like, oh, this is grief. Grief is here. Grief is here right now. So, how can I create space for that? And I just went to bed because my body needed rest. And that was it. And then after I woke up, I began journaling. And so with that, I was even more intentional about having some form of ritual around honoring him this year. Okay, so and I took a long walk and just sat by the water for my angel anniversary. Oh, I love that. I say my angel's birthday. Okay. I just wanted to be by myself. Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That is beautiful. I love that. And sometimes you definitely just want to be by yourself, reflecting on your baby. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yes, so this year I knew that I wanted to bake a cake. I was thinking too that I would have other family members like write into a digital card. I would collect their messages and like fold it up and like pray over it, bless their messages, really a way of like sending them up to Mateo. And I kept hesitating on that because I didn't know how emotional I would be and I didn't know who I wanted to involve. And I was wondering if I would cause other people to be emotional. And I eventually didn't do that. It was like the day before, and I was like, all right, I guess it's like not the most convenient thing to tell people or to ask people to do that the day before. And so I just decided that I would bake Mateo a cake. I baked a carrot cake from scratch, a gluten-free carrot cake, got candles, and my husband and I lit the candles and then blew it out for Mateo. We said a prayer of appreciation for him, sent just positive thoughts to him, blew out the candle, and I made pineapple juice with some other stuff, pineapple ginger, some other stuff, and put it in champagne glass. And we sat, ate cake, and drank juice. And it was beautiful. It was simple and so beautiful because together we just honored Mateo. Together we honored the fact that he was in our lives, he was here physically with us, and he is still here with us in some form, in the form of spirit or the form of energy, right? And so we got to honor him and not just overlook the fact that he was here. And I don't think most of us intend to overlook it. It's that we're not even sure how to approach doing that. We're not even sure how to approach honoring our baby, right? Especially if we don't have enough support around us to do that. But again, it's so important to do so because you get to change the imprint that's left with you over time. You get to change the imprint from something painful, from something isolating, So if I were to involve other people, if I were feeling isolated and I involved other people, then I could essentially neutralize that feeling of isolation by involving other people in this celebration or in this ritual around the day that Mateo appeared on earth, the day that he appeared in our lives, right? And again, the risk of not doing this is that you're left with an imprint that impacts your work. It impacts your relationships. It impacts your belief in yourself, like who you perceive yourself to be in the world and the ability that you think you have in the world, right? So we get to have these different practices that heal the imprint over time. These different practices that move a memory from totally traumatic to a little bit better, to a little bit better, to a little bit better, to eventually something that feels like it was a positive influence in your life, right? So, so important, so important. It's like these things are bigger than we expect they are. They absolutely are. It's like, you might think, all right, this is my baby, this is my child, and then this is my career over here, this is my relationship over here. But because you are connected to your baby, because the experience with your baby has now impacted the person that you are, then whatever perception that you have of yourself, that impacts every other area of your life. So important that we heal the imprint, we heal the memory and the emotions that are left in our bodies over time. All right, so let's talk about different ways that you can honor your baby and essentially begin to heal this imprint. So I love what you mentioned about wanting to be by herself. And so taking a long walk and sitting by the water for her angel's birthday. Like that is just so beautiful. And it sounds like it was such a peaceful experience. Thanks for sharing that. So you could spend time in nature with your baby, just reflecting on the experience of being with your baby, being pregnant with your baby, giving birth to your baby. You could just reflect on that and make that experience yours, something that you cherish. You could do things that involve other people if that's the inspiration that you're having. Because we're mostly in a digital world right now, you could have a celebration over Zoom, letting other people know that you're hosting a get together for the baby, to honor the baby, and you can let them know ahead of time how you would like them to participate. And so if you want them to share their favorite memories, if you want them to share prayers, you can have them, or well wishes, you can have them put those things together ahead of time. You can do something for someone else in honor of your baby. There are people who put together like gift baskets for other families who've experienced loss in honor of their baby. You can plant a tree. You can buy a plant and you water the plant and grow the plant in your own home in honor of your baby. A lot of different things. But what I would say is don't overwhelm yourself. Don't make it so difficult so that you don't do anything at all, because then you are contributing to a negative imprint, right? So if you try to do something that's so overwhelming, that sort of just like drives you out of your mind, then the memory that you have is that, okay, not only did I not do anything, but I was so overwhelmed that maybe next year I don't even want to think about doing anything again, right? So make it easy, make it accessible to you and anyone that you want to involve. So right here, my husband and I ate the cake in a few days. But we left a slice for Mateo, and it still has his 3 candles sticking out. And it just gives me joy to see it. It gives me joy to see it and to think of him, and to wonder if he would like carrot cake. It just gives me joy. And so it has created this memory that's now in my body that's joyful. That is really joyful. Yes. So yes, those were my suggestions for today. There are obviously other things that you can do. There are numerous things that you can do, and let it be something that you enjoy. So if you're into art, you can paint something. If you are into baking, you can bake something. If you're into, like singing, you can write and sing a song. Like there's so many things that you can do to honor your baby. The goal is to make this an experience that creates a positive imprint so that it's more healing for you, right? Because this journey of healing, it's going to be long. It's going to be long, and that's okay. That is okay that it's long. But the fact that it's long, it means that you have more time to slowly process, more time to slowly integrate these different experiences that bring you more and more healing, right? You don't have to be re-traumatize all over again so that you do all of the healing at once. You get to take your time. What's the memory that came up? How can I honor that memory and create this container around it so that it's more joyful, it's more peaceful, so that the next time I remember a birthday, I remember that I was sitting by the water. I remember that I felt so peaceful, right? I remember that I baked the cake and the cake was delicious. And we took pictures and we sat down and we like did a little ching with our wine glasses with pineapple juice. Like all of these things create so much joy. And it's the joy that's going to be healing. It's the peace that's going to be healing. It's the positive emotions that are going to be healing. And on the other side of that, it's holding the imprint of the pain and the loss and the worry and whatever perception that that loss has caused you to create about yourself. Your baby was here. And so, in honoring your baby, you're honoring your baby's life, right? So, on the one hand, it's creating more positive memories and associations for yourself. And on the other hand, it's your baby. Like your baby was here. So why would your baby not deserve to be honored? I think often what happens when we don't go through the process of honoring our babies, it's often that we worry about other people around us. Like, what might someone say if I call them to ask them to participate in this thing? Actually, they might really value that I thought of them. They might really value that I wanted to include them in something that was so special, right? And depending on the level of support that you have around you, depending on how open other people are to just talking about your baby and acknowledging your baby, it creates within you the permission as to whether or not it's okay for you to do so. So if you don't feel as though you have the permission to honor your baby and involve the other people around you, you're not going to want to do it. You're not going to feel the level of support that it takes to have the confidence to do it, right? So I also want to acknowledge that a lot of times when it doesn't happen or when we're not able to do it, it's because we don't have the support around us. But know that this can be done in small ways. You can sit in your bedroom with a candle and pen and paper and write a letter to your baby. You can sit with, some markers or pencil crayons and a piece of white paper and just draw something in honor of your baby. So it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to feel too overwhelming. It's just creating the space to honor your baby. And by creating that positive experience around your baby, that supports you in your healing. That supports you in feeling more confident. That supports you in releasing the imprint of failing or releasing the imprint of your body not being good enough and creating these more positive imprints that are going to strengthen you, your body, your confidence, strengthen your belief in yourself. And so that has a positive impact on you. In any space that you go, you show up being more confident because of the healing work that you have started to do over time for yourself and around this experience of the loss. There you have it, Birth Warrior. I hope that today's episode was helpful for you. I hope you got both the inspiration and a little bit more permission to honor your angel in any small or big way that feels right for you. I would also love to extend the invitation to you to be featured on our podcast, this podcast, and share your birth warrior journey. Check the show notes for the link to sign up. We would love to have you share your story, what your experience has been like, what healing has been like. And I'm sure that so many others will relate to your story and might find healing in it. And of course, there are other ways for us to stay in touch. You can find me on Instagram at @thebirthwarriors. You can reach out to me via email, hello@nataliefacey.com. That is hello at NATALEEF as in face, FACEY.com. And you can also find me inside of our private Facebook community, the Birth Warrior Community. So until next time, thank you for spending the day with me. Bye.